The rain hadn't stopped since Robert's funeral. 3 days had passed, but the house still felt full of him. His jacket still hung by the door, his glasses rested on the nightstand, and his favorite coffee mug sat untouched beside the sink. Grace Miller walked through each room quietly, touching the things he left behind as if they could bring him back. She still wore her black dress. The smell of flowers from the funeral mixed with the scent of cold tea. Everything reminded her of the man she had loved for 35 years. Grace sat in the living room, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The silence was heavy. She could almost hear Robert's voice calling her name, the soft way he used to say, "Gracie." She had never lived alone before. Now every small sound, the creak of the floor, the ticking of the clock, felt too loud. The phone rang suddenly, making her jump. For a second, she thought it might be Daniel, her son, calling from his offshore job. But when she picked up, it was a woman's voice. Bright, smooth, too cheerful for a house still full of mourning. "Hi, Mom. It's Olivia," said the voice. Grace's heart softened a little. Olivia was her daughter-in-law, Daniel's wife. She had 2 small children, Emma, 8, and Liam, 4. Grace hadn't seen them since before Robert's death. "Hello, dear," she said quietly, trying to sound steady. Olivia didn't ask how Grace was coping. She didn't mention Robert at all. Instead, her tone was calm, practical, almost impatient. "I was thinking," Olivia began, "since you've got no one left to look after now, maybe you could help us out." Grace frowned slightly. "Help you out?" "Yes," Olivia continued quickly. "I've been really stressed lately. I need a break, a little healing vacation. To clear my head. Daniel's away working, and it's been too much for me. So I thought, you can take care of the kids for a while. It'll be good for you. You'll find purpose again." Grace stared at the phone. The words felt like a stone thrown into her heart. No one left to look after. The phrase echoed in her mind. She thought of Robert's last words to her. "Don't be alone too long, Gracie." Olivia's voice broke her thoughts. "It'll just be a week, maybe 2. The kids love you. And honestly, it'll help you not think too much about. Grace swallowed hard. "All right, dear," she said softly. "Bring them tomorrow." "Perfect," Olivia replied quickly, relief clear in her tone. "You're the best. I'll drop them off in the morning." And before Grace could say anything else, the line went dead. Grace held the phone to her chest for a moment. Then she set it down and looked around the room again. The photo of her and Robert on their anniversary smiled back at her. She sighed, whispering, "I guess I'll have company again, old man." The next morning, she woke early. She boiled tea, set out small plates for breakfast, and found Emma and Liam's old storybooks. She even took out Robert's favorite chair from the corner. It had always been Grandpa's chair. The thought of the children sitting in it brought a small warmth to her heart. At 10 o'clock, a car horn honked outside. Grace opened the door, smiling softly, expecting to see Olivia walking up with her children. Instead, Olivia barely stepped out of the car. She wore large sunglasses, even though the sky was gray. Her nails were freshly done, and her suitcase looked expensive. "Here they are," she said brightly, opening the car doors. "Emma, Liam, say hi to Grandma." Emma ran to hug Grace, her small arms wrapping tightly around her waist. "Grandma," she whispered. "I missed you." Grace felt her eyes fill with tears. "I missed you too, sweetheart." Liam followed, shyly holding his toy truck. He looked up at her with Robert's gentle eyes. Grace bent down to hug him too. Olivia was already walking back toward the car. Their clothes are in the suitcase, and Emma knows their bedtime routine. "Oh, and please don't let them eat too much sugar." Grace blinked. "Wait, you're not coming in?" Olivia laughed lightly. "I'm running late, Mom. It's just a short trip, promise. They'll be angels." She put on her sunglasses again and waved. "Thanks again, you're a lifesaver." The car engine roared, and before the children could even say goodbye, Olivia was gone. Grace stood on the doorstep, holding Liam's small hand. Emma looked up at her and asked, "Is Mommy really coming back soon?" Grace smiled faintly, though her chest felt heavy. "Of course, darling. She just needs a little rest." That night, Grace made dinner, simple soup and bread. The children ate quietly. Emma asked for a bedtime story about Grandpa. Grace opened one of Robert's old books, but instead of reading, she began telling them about him. How he loved to whistle while fixing the garden fence. How he always brought candy home after work. How he once got scolded by her for feeding stray cats in the kitchen. Liam laughed sleepily, and Emma's eyes sparkled. When Grace kissed them goodnight, she felt something she hadn't in days, peace. But when she returned to her room, she noticed something strange. Olivia had left a brown envelope on the kitchen counter. Grace almost threw it away, thinking it was junk mail. But then she saw the name printed on it in bold letters, Robert Miller. Her heart stopped. She slowly opened it. Inside was a notice from the bank. It mentioned a loan Robert had supposedly taken just 2 weeks before his death. The number was large, tens of thousands of dollars. And at the bottom was Robert's signature. Only it wasn't his. The handwriting looked like his at first glance, but Grace had lived beside that signature for decades. The loop in the R was wrong. The tail on the M was too straight. Her fingers trembled as she touched the paper. She set the letter down and stared at the clock ticking on the wall. A cold feeling crept through her chest. In the silence of that small house, she whispered to herself, "Robert, what have they done?" The night stretched long and sleepless. Outside, the rain began again. Inside, Grace lay awake, one hand on the envelope, staring into the dark, unaware that this was only the beginning of a truth she never expected to uncover. The next morning, the sky was pale and quiet after a night of rain. Grace Miller woke early, just as she always had when Robert was alive. She moved slowly, her body tired from little sleep. The brown envelope from the night before lay on the kitchen table, right where she had left it. She didn't dare touch it again. It sat there like a silent weight. She made breakfast for Emma and Liam, scrambled eggs, toast, and milk. The children talked softly while eating. Emma asked if she could draw something for Grandpa. Liam just hummed and played with his spoon. Grace smiled at them, trying to keep her voice gentle. "Of course, darling. Grandpa would love that." But her mind wasn't calm. The envelope's words replayed in her head. Final notice. Outstanding payment. Signature required. The more she thought about it, the more wrong it felt. Robert had always been careful. He paid every bill early, kept every receipt in a labeled folder. He never took loans. Never. After breakfast, she walked the children to school. The air smelled fresh, and the sun peeked out between the clouds. On the way back, she passed by the bank mentioned in the letter. She almost walked in, but stopped herself. She wasn't ready. What would she even say? That her dead husband's signature didn't look right? That her daughter-in-law might somehow be involved? It sounded mad. She went home and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the tablet Emma and Liam used for games and online school. She wasn't good with technology, but she knew how to check emails. Maybe she could find something, anything, to explain what was going on. The tablet was open on the kid's profile. Grace tapped around and found the mail app. She didn't expect to find much. But there it was, an unsent email sitting in the drafts folder. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It was addressed to someone named Mr. Harris, loan officer. The message said, "Don't worry. He's old. He won't notice. We used his signature before, and it worked. Just send the money through the same account. Olivia." Grace stared at the screen, her eyes burning. She read it again and again, but the words didn't change. We used his signature before. Her breath caught. Her daughter-in-law, her son's wife, had forged Robert's signature. She scrolled further down and found attachments. Photos of documents. Robert's ID. His business records. She felt her stomach twist. How had Olivia even gotten these? Grace remembered Olivia helping Robert with some insurance papers last month, saying, "Let me handle this online. It's easier for you." Robert had trusted her. Grace set the tablet down, her hands shaking. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the children's toys lay on the porch, bright and innocent under the morning light. She felt dizzy. Everything she had believed about her family was slipping away. Her eyes caught something else, a notification blinking on the tablet. It was from a messaging app. The chat name said Retreat Group. Grace opened it without thinking. Dozens of photos appeared. Pictures from Olivia's so-called healing vacation. There were no beaches for reflection, no quiet cabins. There were parties, cocktails, swimming pools, and people laughing. Olivia was smiling in every photo, a glass in hand, standing beside a man Grace didn't recognize. A tall man wearing a bracelet, Emma's handmade bead bracelet. The one she had made for her father, Daniel, before he left for work. Grace's heart sank. She covered her mouth, staring at the images. Olivia was not healing. She was celebrating, with someone else. She scrolled further and found a message Olivia had sent to a friend. "Government childcare money hit today. LOL, they still think I pay for daycare. Grace will do it for free as always." Another message followed. "Going away with R. Finally some fun after all the drama. Hope the old lady doesn't call too much." The screen blurred as tears filled Grace's eyes. She placed the tablet down gently and sat at the table, her hands over her face. For a long time, she didn't move. She didn't know what to do. She thought about Daniel, her son, working somewhere far offshore, believing everything at home was fine. He loved Olivia. He trusted her. And Olivia had not only lied, she had stolen from his father, from Grace, from the very family that had welcomed her in. Grace wiped her tears. "Enough," she whispered to herself. She took a deep breath, stood up, and walked to the small drawer where Robert had kept important papers. Inside were old ledgers, electricity bills, and signed forms. She compared the real signatures with the one from the bank letter. There was no mistake. The forged one was different. Her heart pounded, but her mind was steady now. She gathered the envelope, printed the email draft from the tablet, and made copies of Robert's real signatures. She placed them all neatly in a folder. Then she called the local legal aid office listed on a leaflet Robert once brought home. The woman on the phone spoke kindly. "Mrs. Miller, it sounds serious. Don't confront her. Please come in with the documents. We'll help you speak to the police." Grace agreed, her voice quiet but firm. "Thank you." That evening, she picked up the children from school. Emma showed her a drawing she made, a picture of the whole family holding hands, even Grandpa Robert. Grace smiled and hugged her tightly. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she said softly. As they walked home, Emma asked, "Grandma, are you sad today?" Grace thought for a moment. "A little," she said honestly. "But sometimes sadness helps us see the truth." Emma didn't understand, but she nodded anyway and held Grace's hand. That night, when the children were asleep, Grace sat on the couch with her folder on her lap. The house was quiet again. She looked around at the family photos, at Robert's empty chair, and whispered, "I'll fix this, Robert. I promise you." Then she switched off the light, her decision already made. Tomorrow she would go to the police. Tomorrow she would protect her family, not just from loss but from lies. She didn't know what would come next, but one thing was certain. Grace Miller was no longer just a grieving widow. She was about to become the one person Olivia Carter never expected to stand up against her. Grace woke before dawn, the house gray and hushed. She brewed tea and sat at the table with the neat folder she had prepared. Bank notice, printed draft email, copies of Robert's real signature, and the notes she had written in her careful handwriting. She read each page again, checking dates and times, making sure nothing was missing. She was not angry now, she was steady. After dropping Emma and Liam at school, Grace took a slow bus to the legal aid office. The city moved around her, shops opening, cleaners sweeping, students laughing, while her mind held only one clear road. Protect the children, protect Robert's name, protect what is right. At the office, a woman with kind eyes greeted her. "Mrs. Miller? I'm Karen." She led Grace into a small room with a round table and a box of tissues in the center. Grace smiled politely and placed the folder down. Karen read in silence for a while, stopping now and then to ask gentle questions. "When did you first see this envelope? Who has access to the tablet? Did your husband ever speak about loans?" "No," Grace said each time the truth required it. Robert hated borrowing. He saved for things. He liked to pay early. She showed Karen the differences in the signatures, pointing to the way Robert's are curved like a question mark and how the forged one stood stiff and straight. Karen nodded. "You have good eyes, Mrs. Miller. We'll help you present this to the Financial Crimes Unit. Please remember, do not confront your daughter-in-law. Let the police work." Grace held her shawl closed at her neck and nodded. "I understand." 2 blocks away, at the police station, Grace met Officer Patel and Officer Reed. They offered her water and listened without rushing her. Grace explained about the watch Robert had promised Emma and how a pawn shop receipt had turned up in the drawer. She handed over the ticket. Officer Patel wrote down the number and excused himself to call the shop. While they checked records, Grace sat quietly with her hands folded. The station smelled of paper and coffee. A young officer walked by with a box of lost items, keys, wallets, a toy dinosaur. Grace thought of Liam's small hands and Emma's careful drawings. The world could be careless, she would not be. When the officers returned, they had a clearer picture. "The pawn ticket matches an antique watch," Officer Reed said. "Security footage confirms a woman matching Olivia Carter's description sold it. The date is the night after your husband's hospital visit." He paused, measuring his words. "We also see activity on loan applications and benefit accounts tied to your late husband's identity. Several logins came from a device registered to your daughter-in-law. Grace pressed her palms together, not in surprise but in acceptance. What happens now? We'll open a case, Patel said. We need you to keep the children's routine steady. If she contacts you, let us know. When she returns, we'll be ready to speak with her. Do not tell her what you've shared. Grace left the station with a receipt for the documents and a simple promise to herself. She would be the calm inside the storm. Over the next week, she built a small, safe rhythm at home. Breakfast at 7. School drop-off at 8. A stop at the market for apples and bread. Laundry on the line by noon. In the afternoons, she tidied Robert's desk, sorting ledgers into labeled envelopes. Utilities, shop repairs, family. She found a crumpled page with numbers that didn't add up and put it aside for the officers. She also found a photograph of Robert tying Emma's shoe, his face bent with affection. She kept that one. In the evenings, she helped Emma with spelling and listened to Liam rehearse the names of his toy cars like a poem. She told small truths the children could hold. Your grandpa liked to fix things, she would say. And he liked to make sure everyone was safe. One afternoon, a message arrived from an unknown number. Pick up the kids Saturday. I'll be back by 5. Don't fuss. The tone was sharp, familiar. Grace forwarded it to Officer Patel and received a short reply. Thank you. We'll be there. Grace exhaled. The house felt very still. She checked the refrigerator, folded the children's clothes, and washed the good teacups. It was not fear that moved her now but care, a carefulness that touched every corner of the home. She put fresh sheets on the beds and laid Robert's watch receipt under the folder, as if stacking truth like bricks. That night, Daniel called from a scratchy line at sea. He sounded tired. Mom, how are the kids? They are okay, Grace said. Emma drew a lighthouse today, and Liam named 3 clouds. She hesitated, then chose the path she had walked all week, quiet truth. Danny, when you return, we need to talk about things at home. I have taken steps to keep the children safe. There was a long pause. Daniel's voice lowered. Is it Olivia? Grace closed her eyes. We will talk when you are back. For now, trust that I am doing what your father would have wanted. He did not push. I trust you, he said softly. Tell the kids I love them. On Friday, the legal aid clinic called. Karen's voice was firm. The officers have everything they need to question her. If she tries to remove the children, call 911 immediately. Do not resist her alone. I won't, Grace said. She hung up and stood at the window. Evening had painted the street amber. Somewhere a dog barked. A bus sighed to a stop and moved again. Life kept its ordinary shape, even when a family's shape had changed. Before bed, Grace opened the box where she kept Robert's things. She lifted his prayer card, his cuff links, and the little note he had once slipped into a grocery list. Buy milk. And remember I love you. She smiled without tears. Love, like a lighthouse, did not move when the sea did. Saturday came with a clear sky. Grace dressed Emma and Liam in soft, clean clothes and combed their hair with gentle fingers. She baked a small pan of cinnamon buns because the house should smell kind on hard days. At 4:30, she placed 2 mugs on the counter and set the kettle to boil. Her hands were sure. At 5 o'clock, a car pulled up, loud and confident. Grace took a breath, kissed Liam's head, and squeezed Emma's hand. Whatever happens, she whispered, I am right here. The front door opened. Olivia's laughter arrived before she did. Sunglasses pushed into her hair, a shiny new bag on her shoulder. She stepped inside as if nothing in the world could ever touch her. Grace turned, calm and ready, not with anger, not with revenge, but with the quiet weight of truth. In the hallway, just beyond Olivia's shoulder, 2 figures waited out of sight. The house smelled of cinnamon and clean linen. The clock ticked. The children watched, their eyes wide, their bodies close to Grace's steady presence. Everything Grace had done, every careful page copied, every gentle choice made, led to this doorway. She folded her hands over her shawl, lifted her chin, and met Olivia's bright, careless smile with something stronger. The moment held its breath, and the next chapter began. Olivia stepped into the hallway like a bright light that hurt the eyes. Her laugh was loud, her perfume strong, her suitcase rolling behind her. Where are my little angels? She sang, setting her phone on the table without looking at Grace. Emma and Liam stood close to their grandmother. Grace felt their warm shoulders press against her skirt. From the doorway behind Olivia, 2 people moved forward, a man and a woman in plain clothes. Their badges caught the light. Ms. Olivia Carter? The man said. His voice was calm. I'm Officer Patel. This is Officer Reed. We need to speak with you. Olivia blinked, confused, then annoyed. About what? I just came home. She put on a careless smile and tried to glide past them. Mom, could you get the kids' shoes? We're leaving. No, Grace said softly. One word, steady as a wall. Officer Reed opened a small folder. We have questions about identity theft, forged signatures, and the sale of an antique watch belonging to the late Robert Miller. Olivia laughed too fast. This is insane. Robert told me to handle paperwork. Everyone trusted me. She turned to Grace, eyes sharp. You're making trouble when I'm trying to fix my life. Grace didn't argue. She did not raise her voice. The children will stay here, she said, and placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. The officers explained the evidence in simple lines. The email draft, the bank notice, the device logins, the pawn ticket with matching security footage. Olivia's face lost color. Her lipstick looked too bright now, painted on a story that would not hold. Come with us, Ms. Carter, Officer Patel said. You are not under arrest at this moment, but we need your statement at the station. Olivia's eyes darted to the front door, then to the children. She put on a small, sweet voice. Emma, baby, tell Grandma you want to come home with Mommy. Emma's hand tightened around Grace's fingers. Her small voice trembled. I want to stay with Grandma, she whispered. Something in Olivia cracked. She tried to push past the officers. They're my kids. Ms. Carter, Officer Reed said firmly. Please don't make this harder. Olivia stopped, shaking. She turned to Grace with a look that mixed anger and a kind of pleading. You think they'll thank you for this? You think Daniel will? Grace's answer was quiet. I think the truth will. The officers guided Olivia toward the door. In that moment, a social worker, called earlier by the police, stepped inside and knelt to Emma and Liam's height. She showed them a soft smile, said her name, and told them she was there to make sure everyone stayed safe. This small kindness let the room breathe again. When the door closed, the house fell into a thick hush. Emma started to cry, not loud but deep. Liam pressed his face into Grace's side. Grace hugged them both. We will have tea, she said gently. We will sit and breathe, and we will not hurry. She made cocoa for the children and tea for herself. The kettle's whistle sounded like a steady note held in a choir. Together they sat at the table, the cinnamon buns on a plate, steam rising in quiet curls. Grace told them a simple truth. Your mother is answering questions. Grown-ups must answer for grown-up choices. You did nothing wrong. You are safe. That evening, Daniel called. His voice was thick with worry. Mom, I heard from the union. They approved emergency leave. I'll be home by morning. Grace closed her eyes for a second. Come safely, she said. The children are sleeping. They're brave. Morning came with clear light. Daniel arrived with a small bag and tired eyes. He hugged Emma and Liam for a long time, then turned to his mother. Tell me everything. They sat at the table where all the pages had once been spread. Grace told the story in simple steps. The envelope, the tablet, the messages, the legal aid clinic, the police, the plan. Daniel listened without speaking, hands folded, jaw set. When she finished, he let out a slow breath. I should have seen it, he said. You were working to feed your family, Grace replied. Blindness and trust look the same until the light changes. Daniel nodded, eyes wet. Thank you, Mom. He looked at the children. We will do this right. Later that day, Officer Patel returned with news. Olivia had given a statement. She claimed the money was temporary, and the watch was just a loan until payday. But the paper trail told a colder story. There would be charges. There would be a hearing. Until then, a temporary order gave physical care of Emma and Liam to Daniel, with Grace as their daily guardian while he sorted leave from work. There was one more thing. We recovered the watch, Patel said, placing a small box on the table. Inside lay Robert's antique watch, the glass buffed, the strap replaced. Grace's hands shook as she lifted it. Emma leaned close, eyes wide. Is it really Grandpa's? It is, Grace whispered. She wound it once. The second hand began to move, steady and brave. She laid it in Emma's palm. This was always meant for you. The days that followed were simple on purpose. Mornings began with porridge and school runs. Afternoons held homework and laundry. In the evenings, Grace told stories of Robert, not as a hero, but as a kind man who liked to fix squeaky hinges and who once burned the toast on purpose just to make the children laugh. Daniel met with a lawyer. He spoke to the benefits office to stop the false claims and set records straight. He called his job and arranged a different rotation so he could be home more. One night, Emma asked a hard question. Is Mommy bad? Grace chose her words with care. Sometimes good people make wrong choices. Wrong choices can hurt like storms. The best thing we can do is stand in a safe place together until the storm passes. We do not pretend the rain is sunshine, but we also do not stop believing in umbrellas and roofs and new mornings. Emma nodded, not fully understanding, but comforted by the shape of the words. Liam yawned and curled up with his blanket. The house felt honest now, still touched by grief, but no longer haunted by secrets. Weeks later, a small hearing took place. Daniel spoke simply. He asked the court to keep the children where they were, stable and loved, while the case moved forward. The judge listened. Paper rustled like leaves. Orders were signed. Outside, Grace took the children's hands and led them into the afternoon light. That evening, she stood by the window with Robert's watch in her palm. The second hand ticked on, small and faithful. She pictured Robert in his old chair, tilting his head the way he did when he approved of something. Grace whispered to the quiet room, "Rest now, Robert. The house is in order." She turned off the lamp and went to tuck the children in. Emma placed the watch on the nightstand and smiled. "Good night, Grandma." "Good night, my heart," Grace said. She closed the door gently and walked back down the hall. The clock in the living room marked each second like a footstep toward tomorrow. The storm had not vanished, but inside these walls the air was warm, the floor was solid, and truth, at last, was the strongest thing in the room.